We all think we know how the victims of Pompeii died. They slowly suffocated under the ash raining from the sky. History books almost describe it like drifting into a peaceful sleep. But what happened in Herculaneum, the wealthy seaside town right next to Pompeii, was anything but a peaceful sleep. The people there didn't suffocate. They died by vaporizing. In 1982, when archaeologists excavated the boathouse vaults along the ancient shoreline of Herculaneum, they were met with a scene that looked like it had been pulled straight out of a nightmare. The vaults were packed with the skeletons of 300 people, tangled together in the dark. But one of them was different. Instead of hiding inside the vaults, a man was found face down on the open beach. Around his waist was a silver belt. In his hand was a sword, and beside him was a leather pouch stuffed to the brim with gold and silver coins. He was the only soldier found among the ruins of the ancient city. Scientists gave him a name, Skeleton E26. Was the fortune beside him the loot of a robbery? Or was he a lone hero trying to save 300 civilians, a story of a 2,000-year-old apocalypse, and a single man standing in the middle of it? After hours of ominous rumbling, Mount Vesuvius began blasting a massive column of ash and gas into the sky. Herculaneum was a paradise of luxury villas, a resort town where the elites of the Roman Empire came to vacation. But when the sky turned black, paradise became a death trap. The rich managed to escape on private boats. Those left behind were the slaves, the servants, and the poor, people without money, without connections, and without a way out. Their only hope was to hide in the boathouse vaults by the shore and wait for a rescue fleet to arrive by sea. 300 people crammed under 6 small arches, waiting in terror. But outside, on the beach, there was one man, Skeleton E26. When forensic specialists examined this soldier's bones in the lab, they realized he wasn't a statue or a symbolic figure. He was a real human being. The wear on his spine showed he was a veteran in his late 30s, the kind of man who lived with chronic back pain. Several of his front teeth had been broken years earlier, maybe in a tavern brawl. Figures were carved into his sword scabbard. This was a hard Roman soldier, battle-tested, well-traveled, a man who lived on the edge. The sword he carried wasn't the weapon of an ordinary guard, but of an elite soldier on active duty. But the real question was this: what were those gold and silver coins doing beside him? That fortune was worth about 2 years of a soldier's wages, so why was it on his belt in the middle of a disaster? Historians believe there are 2 possibilities. The first, and darkest scenario, as the city was being evacuated, the wealthy abandoned their villas. Seeing order collapse and the end of the world unfolding, this soldier may have forgotten his oath, maybe broke into empty homes, smashed open strongboxes, poured the gold into his leather pouch, and ran for the shore. A scavenger, a looter. The second scenario is tied to the brutal nature of Roman society. In Rome, everything had a price. Maybe this elite soldier controlled access to the shore, and wealthy civilians, desperate to board the last boats and save their lives, bribed him. That money could literally have been blood money. But after midnight, money lost all meaning, because there were no rescue ships on the horizon. The boat remains on the shore, so the sea was impossible to cross. Violent waves made escape unthinkable. The last boat was gone. The soldier and 300 civilians were left alone on the beach. After midnight, the volcano's internal dynamics changed. A towering column of ash, rising into the sky, could no longer support its own weight, and it collapsed. That collapse triggered a phenomenon known as a pyroclastic surge, a devastating cloud of toxic gases, rocks, and ash, hotter than 500 degrees Celsius, racing down the mountain toward Herculaneum at around 100 kilometers per hour. Just 6 minutes. It took only 6 minutes to reach the shore. What happened when the cloud hit the beach was beyond anything the human mind is built to process. When scientists examined the skeletons in the vaults, none of them had their hands over their mouths as if trying to breathe. They hadn't suffocated, because they didn't have time to suffocate. Italian researcher Pier Paolo Petrone, while examining a victim known as Skull Number 14, uncovered the horrifying truth. The sheer force of the 500 degrees Celsius cloud made survival scientifically impossible in a fraction of a second. And there was more. Archaeologists found a thin, reddish layer of ash just beneath and above the skeletons. Chemical analysis proved it contained rich iron deposits, the last chemical trace of 300 people. Death came so fast that the victims huddled deep inside the vaults never even saw it coming. They felt no pain. In a single second, the catastrophic heat erased all traces of life, leaving only silence behind. So what about our soldier, Skeleton E26? When he was found, he was lying face down, and his left hand was curled like a claw, as if he had been scraping the ground. At first, everyone assumed he had tried to crawl away from the disaster, like a cowardly thief trying to escape with his gold. But forensic science shattered that legend too. When the human body is exposed to extreme heat, muscles rapidly lose water and contract. This is called the pugilistic stance. the boxer's pose. The soldier's hand wasn't clawing the ground to escape. It curled that way because the intense thermal shock forced his muscles to shrink, pulling tight against the bone. But the greatest clue wasn't his hand. It was where he was found. The 300 civilians were sheltered under stone arches, hidden inside the vaults. But the soldier was outside on the open beach, facing not the sea but the volcano itself. If he were only a looter trying to protect his gold, he would have hidden too. Behavioral scientists and emergency specialists pieced the scene together. When darkness fell, when the boats were gone and panic took over, this hardened older soldier had taken control. He had pushed the civilians, women and children, into the vaults, and he stayed outside, standing guard at the most dangerous point. When he heard that terrible roar coming down from the mountain, he was likely shouting for people to stay inside. He was the first to see the red hell descending from the sky. He didn't run, he didn't hide, he just stood there. And when the 500 degrees Celsius wave of fire swept over him, he was consumed within seconds, and his skeleton, still wearing that heavy silver belt, collapsed onto the sand. By the next morning, as the sun tried to rise, the once glorious resort town of Herculaneum had been erased from the map. When Emperor Titus arrived to witness the scale of the catastrophe, the scene was nothing less than apocalypse. The lush green region of Campania had turned into a vast, gray, lifeless desert. Even the geography had been reshaped. Millions of tons of boiling material from Vesuvius had filled the sea and pushed the coastline back by nearly half a kilometer. The shoreline where the soldier and 300 civilians took their final breath was now far from the water, a massive underground tomb. The emperor formed special committees for relief by personally appointing 2 former consuls and used the seized estates of wealthy citizens who died without heirs to fund the construction of new towns for surviving refugees. In the weeks and months that followed, desperate survivors who had lost everything and grave robbers dug tunnels into the ash, trying to retrieve valuables. But the volcanic debris, reaching depths of 20 meters, had sealed the city like concrete. Unlike the loose ash that covered Pompeii, the pyroclastic mud that swallowed Herculaneum hardened over time into an impenetrable volcanic rock. Tough. This concrete-like mass made excavation and rescue completely impossible, but because it cut off oxygen entirely, it would also preserve wooden furniture, papyrus, scrolls and libraries, and even loaves of bread in ovens. Carbonized, yet perfectly intact, Herculaneum was never rebuilt. While the Roman Empire moved on and healed its wounds, this dead city and its scorched shore were left in centuries of silence. Until the 18th century, when a farmer digging a well accidentally struck the marble of the ancient theater. Skeleton E26 was not a perfect hero. Maybe he had taken that gold by force. Maybe he gambled, brawled in taverns, and lived like a brute. But extraordinary times reveal who people truly are. When doomsday arrived, that rough soldier didn't run. He died standing over 300 civilians, giving his final command against a sea of fire. His money, his sword, and his rank meant nothing against nature's fury. But the place where he chose to stand told the people who found him 2,000 years later exactly who he was. Sometimes the darkest disasters, the most terrifying forces of nature, show us the most complex, most real sides of human nature. Pompeii and Herculaneum are not just ash and ruins. They are frozen museums of courage, fear, and tragedy. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy listening to these silent stories told by bones, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.